My first reaction was, all right, if I can drive an engineered cars at 200 miles an hour, I can surely figure this out. But the first thing I did was I learned all these modalities. Like I became a gut health coach and a bioenergetics coach, and I did Reiki, and I did attended all these retreats. So I was like, all right, I have all this knowledge. Why am I not there yet? Right? And I was having just false expectations of how things should happen and when they should happen.
If you've been white knuckling your way through fatigue, anxiety, or that why am I still stuck loop, even after trying virtually everything under the sun, this interview is for you. We're going to unpack something surprising that flips fear into forward momentum and the counterintuitive pace that actually accelerates progress, and a simple way to stop outsourcing your well being and get back in the driver's seat. If you're looking for practical mindset shifts, a clear daily rhythm, you can start right away and a fresh lens on why progress has felt so slow, then this interview is for you. If you're a new listener here, I'm Raelan Agle, and this channel brings you lived wisdom and the latest science to help you move beyond ME/CFS, Long COVID, and other chronic symptom syndromes without burning out or blowing your budget. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to David Martinez, a former professional race car driver turned wellness practitioner, joining us from his home in Woodlands, Texas. He went from a fast paced, high pressure life to a full stop that forced a radical rethink of everything. And that shift reshaped his health, his work, and his mission now to help people stop outsourcing their well being. In our conversation, we will explore the exact mindset pivot that quiets the fear loop, the go slow to go fast principle he used to rebuild his life, and a simple four-part rhythm that helps you create safety, restore energy, and make changes and stick with them long enough for them to matter. If you've ever thought, I understand the theory, so why isn't it working for me? You will feel seen here and you'll walk away with concrete next steps to try today. So please join me in welcoming our guest, David Martinez, to the Raelan Agle podcast. A small favor before we dive in: the percentage of viewers who subscribe has been slipping. If you're watching and you haven't yet subscribed, I ask you to consider it. It boosts the channel and helps me to book the best possible guests for you. Thank you and enjoy this episode. David, incredible to have you here. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Raelan. I've been counting the days to talk to you.
Well, I've been really excited to talk to you too. You have quite the story. And as I said before we hit record, I have so many questions, but I'll wait until we get going so I don't make you say it all twice. Yeah, there's a lot to get into with your health journey and, what didn't work for you and what did, and the amazing work that you're doing with so many other people now. But people have probably noticed I really like, and I think others like as well, to see what led into this. Like, I know you used to be a race car driver. Can you take us back to that time? What did your life look like back then? How are you going about things before these, health challenges began?
Yeah, sure. First off, I want to say that I really want to thank you for having me here. I remember probably a few years back when I was watching one of your shows, and I was like, I'm going to be there one day and I'm going to tell my story. So just being here today, it means so much to me in my healing journey, being able to, to be here with you and talking about how I moved forward and sharing everything that worked for me. But yeah, I'll share my story. It's the best way
Mhm.
I can explain this. I've lived three different realities pretty much in my life. My first reality was as a race car driver, just born into a racing family, going fast, living a fast life, having a life full of expectations. And then my second reality was that reality when I felt lost, when I felt stuck, when things didn't work anymore. And then the third reality is turning the ship around and coming back to myself. And the best way that I can explain what I do now is actually using a racing analogy. You want to hear it?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, so I like to think that when we were born, we are all giving a race car, right? I love racing analogies because that's how I grew up, and that's how I make sense of most things. So when we're born, we're given this race car, and inside the race car, we have this bucket. And in this bucket, we can hold on to all the stressors in life, all the chemical stressors, all the physical stressors, the emotional stressors. And every day that we wake up to live our day since we're born, we get into our car, we have a day, maybe we have some trauma, maybe we fall down, get up again. But at the end of the day, this car knows how to go back. When we sleep, we detox, we rest, we digest, and we do it over and over again. Now, what happens with time is this bucket slowly starts to fill up and fill up, a little drip of maybe a loss, maybe an illness, maybe we lose a job, and we can just keep driving in automatic for most of the time, right? And then one day, this bucket fills up, and eventually it can't hold any more stress. Whether it doesn't matter, it can be physical or emotional or chemical at the same time. Stress is stress. And so one day it starts to flood our bucket and starts to overspill in our car, right? And that day the car puts a handbrake on it. There's no more. No, I can't take it anymore. And for me, this story or this analogy went from, I was a race car driver and always living on a very tangible world where you have to push hard, you have to get there faster than everybody, you have to win races, and that's what most of my life was. And then one day, it was roughly 2020, when I ignored most of my signals in my body that kept talking and talking to me for years and years. I literally drove myself into a lake on a very stressful night. And I remember that
Wow.
moment so vividly
An
because
actual lake. We're not speaking
no,
metaphorically.
no,
You
no.
actually drove into a lake.
Yeah, I drove myself into a lake. I was at our shop where our racing team is, and I just left that with a lot of stress and got out of the car through the window, because at that point my car was almost flooded, and went
Oh
into
my
the
goodness.
room and called the guys, like, guys, come get me. They obviously they didn't took very long, but that was like the longest moment ever, where I sat down, extremely vulnerable, full of shame, and I had this moment. I now call this car or my body Johnny, as like a third person, and kind of like my body looking at me, and I was like, "Hey, David, how you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, not very well, And like, "How you doing, Johnny?" It's like, "It's not working. It's not working out." And in that moment, I didn't have the solution, but I just knew that. Uh, I had an opportunity to make a change. And from that
Wow.
moment, that's the day that my new personality was born. So that's kind of the story of how I got into this healing journey. It's a very powerful one. And up until that moment, I had a big amount of trauma in my life. As a race car driver, I lost a brother coming back from a race in a car accident.
Wow.
And then I lost my mom to cancer, probably like 10 years later than that. So a lot of these things, what were the things that overfilled my bucket, right? And
Yeah.
that bucket overfilled that night, but it wasn't one thing that overfilled the bucket, right? It was a sum of all these things. And that was the moment when I realized, or my car and I realized, that wasn't working anymore. And that's the day that we turned it around.
That is incredible. Very powerful. And I love the three realities. I've never heard it
Yeah,
explained that way before, but you could see it fitting. The first reality, bucket filling up. Second reality, bucket overflowing.
yeah.
Things are messy and painful and confusing. And then third reality, finding what you need to keep that bucket, in a manageable level. Yeah. Wow. So I'm assuming at some point, because at this point, when the car went in the lake, were you already having some chronic symptoms coming up, or it was just more a point where you're like, something isn't working right now with how I'm living my life?
Yeah, so it was about to start. It was like the whole moment where everything happened. I have
Yeah.
had feeling like something was off years prior to that, but I was so busy, driving fast or living life fast, that I never figured to stop. And I started looking into Western medicine and trying to get some answers of why some of these symptoms like fatigue or just weird pains in my body started to, anxiety started to feel in my life. And then, just like a lot of people in 2020, with that bucket overflowing, at some point I got COVID, long COVID, and then just everything went spiraling down. Like chronic fatigue and anxiety, panic attacks. I mean, all the symptoms that most of your viewers share
Yeah.
became a part of my life. But at that point, I knew that. So when I was on top of my car, I had already uh, gone through a phase where I was, all right, my car doesn't want to move anymore. I don't know how to drive it. So why don't I give the keys to somebody else? And that's when I started outsourcing my health. Like, let me find a
Yep.
doctor. Let me find
Yep.
somebody that will cure me. And I guess that was my first mistake, that I was putting all the hopes and expecting somebody, because there's a lot of people that can help, right? There's a lot of
Hmm.
things that can help, but ultimately nobody will ever know your car as well as you do. And that's what my back to you now framework is all about. It's about understanding the individuality of how we're all so different. And I learned this
Yeah.
from the lens of a race car driver. I was a race car driver, and then I was a race engineer. And you can put the best setup on a car on one driver, and then have another very good driver and put on the same. He won't be able to drive it because everybody's so different. And that's one of the things that moved the needle for me the most, was understanding that there's truth in every story, but ultimately you need to make your own story. And I think this is what finally did it for me, understanding that we're all just so different, and what works for me might
Yeah.
not work for you.
And you can see how we're set up for this because in this car analogy, most of us go through life with, think about our actual cars, and something goes wrong and I take it into
Yeah.
the mechanic and I give him the keys and he fixes it and he gives it back to me. So many of us have a history of a broken arm or a bacterial infection and we need antibiotics. So we're wired and pre-programmed from the start. Like something goes wrong in here. I outsource it to somebody else and they fix it for me. But like back to this car, it's like all of a sudden your car has some sort of software problem that's no one's
Yeah.
heard of and the science hasn't caught up with it. So now, I think there are those acute things, those short-term quick injuries where we can get someone else to come in and they can help us a lot. But we're seeing with these chronic, more complex chronic symptom syndromes that now it's like, oh wait, I have got the power to change this. I am the expert when it comes to these situations. So it's a big shift that we have to make, don't you find?
Yes, it's definitely, it's not. I mean, it sounds easy. The
Hmm.
the solution sounds easy. The journey is not easy. And I
Yeah.
think having some radical acceptance on that you need. Usually people spend most of their lives without knowing themselves, right? Most people wait until they're they're dying to question, like, why am I like this, right?
Yeah.
Why am and just, I think these situations are just an invitation to get to know ourselves. And when we're able to change the perspective and move ourselves from one point to another point, there you will find that you wouldn't change anything that's happened in your life to get to that point. And I think with that understanding, I think the journey becomes much more enjoyable. I think independent of what people are going through.
An invitation to get to know yourself. I have never heard it phrased that way, and I love it so much. I'm always saying I want to get things embroidered on a pillow. I love that. And this is what we say, it's a journey about getting to know yourself, and it's a horrible one in many ways, but you
Yeah.
come out, with a better sense of self, more confidence, more comfortable in your own skin, better boundaries, a more of a focus on what's important to you in life and as opposed to what you think you should be. I think that's incredible. Yeah, really well said.
Yeah, for me, being in that roof, sitting there in that moment, I knew that in that moment that the first thing that I needed to do was just that: slow down, hit the brake.
Yeah.
And in that moment, it wasn't a conscious choice, right? Life chose for me. I got a second opportunity, but I knew that slowing down was a big part of the puzzle,
Mm.
because I after attending multiple retreats from Dr. Joe Dispenza, he teaches this so well, where you can't recreate yourself from a state of panic. right? To enter a state of creation, first you need to find calmness and generate safety and get to a place where, all right, just being very honest with yourself and
Yeah.
how you can get to call your best version from that moment, and just trust that if you become that person even before it happens, and things will slowly but surely start to pull you there.
Yeah. I'm wondering, and I think it's, easier when we tell the story now about what we went through there than to make it sound like it was a sort of smooth journey of like, all right, I'm going to get to know myself now. But I know that many of us find, and I suspect this was especially or could have been especially true for you, that so much of our identity is tied to those things that we were doing. And you being a race car driver, having a literally fast paced life to now be slowing down, you know, did that change your sense of identity? Was it challenging for you to make that shift in that moment?
It was extremely challenging, especially at first, because noticing where I was, what I needed to do was one thing. The second thing was
Mm.
doing it. And my first reaction was, all right, if I can drive and engineer cars at 200 miles an hour, I'm sure I can surely figure this out. I can surely find a way to make this work, and I can heal myself, and I can learn how to do it. But the first thing I did was I learned all these modalities. Like, I became a gut health coach and a bioenergetics coach, and I did Reiki, and I did attended all these retreats. So I was like, all right, I have all this knowledge. Why am I not there yet? Right? Because there was that personality still there, that the expectation, the speed, that still wanted things to happen at a certain pace. And I was, having just false expectations of how things should happen and when they should happen. That's when Dr. Joe Dispenza's work really helped me. Exactly what you're saying, that our personality is basically made of how we think, how we feel, and how we act. And it was in this slowing down, meditative state that I could find out which part of those three things were not working for me. Was I not acting in the way I should be acting to heal, or was I thinking in a negative way, or was I feeling negative emotions? And just by looking deeply into those three things in a state of creativity, then I could slowly peel the layers of the onion, and drive back, also with a radical acceptance that I am who I am, right? And that's why, I mean, when everybody's so individual, and the healing journey is not going to look the same for everybody.
Yeah. Physically, what was this looking like for you as you were going through it? Like, what sort of symptoms were showing up, or how is that physically impacting
Yeah.
your functioning?
Yeah, so for me, it was very frustrating because I wanted to go fast, and at first, I have three kids. I
Oh,
have a
wow.
race. I have a racing team, and actually, all of these started to happen when I had just moved to the U.S. I'm originally from Mexico, and I had my third kid. The second and third were twins. My mom had just passed. I changed
Mhm.
homes, and I started my racing team all in the lapse of like 1 year. And
Wow.
so the first thing that hit me, like, I had no energy. Like, I was talking to I remember talking to my kids just after I had COVID in 2020, and I could barely just like speak to them. Like, I had no energy to do all the things that I wanted to do. Horrible anxiety, panic attacks, and pain in my body. And it was very frustrating because I was doing the work. I was, putting into play, like, all these things that I learned, all the modalities, and it was, for me, frustration was so big because I'm used to winning. I'm used to going fast, and so just finding some acceptance on that was like the one of the biggest things that moved me forward. But it wasn't easy, like, just not being able to have the energy when there's so many things that you want to do when you're a father. You've, in theory, you have created everything that you wanted. Like, I had this beautiful house, and I was in the country that I wanted to live. I have my racing team, and I was a successful race car driver. But I couldn't. It was hard to enjoy because I had no energy.
Yeah.
So it was hard. Like, yeah, this journey is not easy. It's probably the hardest thing that I've done in my life by far.
I think that will be relatable for so many people because
Yeah.
people have a lot of things going on. And I'm sure you've seen, as I have, there's definitely an overrepresentation of people in who face these sorts of conditions who are really high achievers, who are really active, who are really drive themselves, push themselves hard. And then also relatable that, okay, so you come at it with the almost the same or a similar, like, I can do this, I can fix this, I've got all these tools, I'm doing all the things, I think I'm understanding everything, but it's still not going away. Like, I'm still stuck in this. Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I guess that's the hardest part for everybody, right? You watch all these interviews and you're like, all right, this makes sense. I
Yeah.
can do this. Like I can definitely, and I guess that's what I went through. I watched a lot of your interviews and I'm like, all right, I can relate to that. I can see how my nervous system can a little bit off. And then I took gut health, certification, had a gut health coach.
Mhm.
That makes sense. My gut might be off. I took
Mhm.
antibiotics. I did a lot of stuff that I didn't needed to do when I was younger. And so you start looking into all these things and they all make sense, right? But then there's always a question or the resistance in your head, like, why is it not working? Like, why are you moving so slowly? Like, can I heal?
Yeah.
Like, why is everybody healing? And it comes down, I think it's at the end, it just becomes this mindset, right? Like there's no diploma for healing. Nobody's gonna give you like, all right, you've healed. Here you go. Like now you've healed. Right? It's like a mentality. It's like you make the decision. You make the decision, and that decision requires a level of emotion and feeling that needs to happen even before all of your symptoms are gone. And I think that was really important for me to understand that what I was looking for was not a destination. Was not like I was gonna wake up one day and I was like, oh, I'm healed, like everything is gone. It was just this mentality and understanding that again, like all these things that we learn from all these people that have healed, that there's some truth in all of them, and we didn't get to that place where our car is broken in one day also,
Yeah.
right? That's the other thing. Like people are always feel like, well, I'm one supplement away, I'm one therapy away, I'm one TV show
Mhm.
away. Like if I only get that one last thing, then I'll be all right,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? And I think that having some acceptance and understanding that it was a big road to get to that point,
Yeah.
it might take that long, or hopefully half that time, right? But it's going to take some time to get your car to trust you again, to become a
Yeah.
better driver, to grab the keys and to remember that ultimately that you are the driver of your life, that you're the creator of your life, and that in every challenge there's a moment of integration where you're going to learn something that you need to learn. And sometimes that's why time feels so long, is because there's a time that we need to integrate everything that we're going through, and that's why sometimes it feels like the days are so long, right?
Yeah.
So I feel that just the interpretation of every moment, I think it ultimately is what helped me a lot. Like understanding that there is going to be hard moments. Like healing is definitely not linear. There's going to be bad days, right? But it's how we face those days what changes the outcome.
Yeah, I like that, thinking of it more about the journey instead of a destination you're trying to get to. I think
Yeah.
it's true, excuse me, of so many
Mm.
things in life. I'm even thinking about myself right now, and I'm trying to, get in shape and be more active and going to the gym. And, I'm following this health guru, and he's like, quit checking the scale, quit thinking about it. Like, once I get here, this will be my happily ever after. You're building in new habits for different ways of thinking, for different ways of living. And he says, even fitness, it's a physical thing, or it's a psychological process disguised as a physical one. So I think it really shifts when you stop thinking about when am I going to reach that finish line, and you're like, wait a minute, like I'm learning a new way of living, a new way of thinking, a new way of being, and that's the path out of this. And it takes, as long as it takes, it never stops,
It never
really.
stops. Yeah, and
Yeah.
also one of the things that I learned, I love analogies, and I don't know where I heard this one, but I never thought about it, but scientifically, we all have a leg that's longer than the other one. And so, if whenever you've seen movies where people are stuck in a forest and they're trying to get out, they just think to themselves, I'm just going to walk straight and I'll eventually get out of this, right? I'll walk into a town or something, but only to find themselves back in the same moment. In the same place. And when you think about it, if you have one leg bigger than the other one, you're gonna like a big compass, turning around in circles. And this is what happens to us. Our personality shapes who we are, and we always trend to go in the same circle and circle and kind of have the same um, behaviors. And this is why I really love. I call it the Lento Stack. Lento means slow in Spanish in the morning,
Hmm.
where I have this time for myself where I go out and watch the sunrise and do a meditation, and I ask myself, what is the best version of of myself gonna look like today, right? Because during the day we forget. The personality
Yeah.
jumps in. We stop going around in those circles again. But in this moment in the morning when everything's asleep and you enter this creative state, that's when you call your best version. And then it's like American football, right? All the players get gathered together and they decide on a play, and they're like, all right, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go there, and then the play, and you just hit play and just let the play happen, right? And that's how I see every day. In the morning you gather up and you just call your best self and you just let it play, right? And it's just understanding that we're all so unique and it's also okay. Like, we're humans, we make mistakes, we go back to the same behaviors, we get an opportunity to do it over and over again.
So, how do you feel now about slowness and stillness? How has this changed you? I'm pretty sure it's safe to say it has, but I'm just wondering,
Yeah,
yeah, what does life look and feel like now?
it 100%. Like, that's the first thing. Like, slowing down, what happened to me in the
Hmm.
lake in a very dramatic way taught me how important, and very ironic, there's a saying in racing that says slow in, fast out. Most people think that going fast as a race car driver is just going fast the whole time, but it's not. Like, learning how to slow down is one of the most important key components as a race car driver to be able to go fast. So it's ironic that it took me so long to understand that that also applied to my life. And so slowing down is, I think it's without slowing down, like, you can't access that part of your higher self to find clarity. Like, I think that's from every way I see it, like, that's always has to be like the first thing that we need to do. Just slow
Yeah.
down to us, like, how am I really doing? Like, is this really working for me? Like, who am I being? How am I acting today? And if you're able to ask those questions and go within, then the clarity arises, and the way forward shows.
That is such a good reminder. One of the many, many reasons I love doing interviews with people like yourself. I'm thinking, even as I'm in this phase of my life where I'm building a different career, and it can feel like the path to success, the right way to do it is to go as fast as possible, right? You can't
Yeah,
slow down. Slow
yeah,
can feel unsafe. Slow feels
yeah,
like you're slacking or not trying hard enough or doing it wrong. But we know, I know when I slow down and think about it, that absolutely it's important. And going fast without that time for peace and reflection and purposeful decision making and interactions, you're really not going to end up where you're trying to go anyways. Yeah, such a really great reminder.
yeah, for sure. I have to remind myself this every day, because
Yeah.
in my blood I have adrenaline. Like, I ran on adrenaline for probably a few decades,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until I started to run out when my car was like, whoa, like, this is not working out. And so that's why I created some. I've always felt like a lot of people struggle a lot of times when they're trying to change, right? And they're all right, I need to get rid of this and rid of that and rid of this, and then all of a sudden you're getting rid of everything, and you just feel like, whoa, whoa, like, like, this is not fun. So the way I like to see it is, rather than taking things out, you just start bringing good things into your life, and eventually there's no room for the bad ones, right? So
I
that,
like that.
yeah, that's something that really worked for me. Rather than, I'm gonna stop eating this and eating that, why don't I start substituting this and substituting, and all of a sudden you fill your day with so many good things. All of a sudden there's no room to, for bad things.
I love that so
Mm.
much. We really do focus on like what is bad, what is
Yeah,
not helping me. And then we get so focused on like, how do I get rid of it? And our sight is on it all the time and it becomes a fixation. And instead, just like, let's just shift it. Let's just squeeze it out
yeah, because
with
sometimes,
better
like, these
things.
these thinking habits, they also fill that bucket where we're talking about, right? The
Yeah.
bucket is not only, people fixate sometimes, like, oh, there's only environmental toxins and all these toxins that I'm surrounded by, like, chemtrails and all these things. Like, yeah, those things are real. There's also the emotional loops that keep pouring into that bucket, right? And sometimes subconscious thinking patterns are on all day without you
Mhm.
even noticing them. They're all day. They're just loops. They're thinking, thinking, thinking. and that's
Mhm.
just adding to the bucket, right? So that's where the power of thinking and the power of the belief really play a super important role in just emptying that bucket.
So I know that clearly you made a career switch from
Yeah.
racing into wellness. Was that an easiest, obvious decision for you to make, or how did
No.
you get to that?
No, it's very similar to racing. So when I was young and my family was into racing, right? It seemed like a very clear path, but it wasn't for me. It wasn't until really when my brother passed, when I was around 12 years old, where I felt like a higher calling pushed me. Like, all right, there's something for you to learn here, and I just had so much uh, passion came out of that from that moment that just carried me into racing. Like it was like a something that like an inner voice, like you have to go through this. And so when I started my healing journey, the first thing that I did was, all right, if the Western medicine is not helping me out, I gave the keys to a lot of people, or they're not helping me out. I'm gonna go through this. And so I started learning and learning and learning so many. Took course after course. Like I spent so much money doing this. Um, and it wasn't until I attended a very nice retreat from Deepak Chopra. I think it was in 2021. um, I had been having this very weird sensation on my throat that I just couldn't wrap myself around it. Like, what is it? What like it just felt tight. I started Reiki as well, and I knew then that the fifth chakra, which is the throat chakra, is aligned to just is being able to express and speak out. And so I knew there was a relationship to that, and so I was having this really nice meditation about purpose in this retreat. And in that meditation, I was just so relaxed, and all of a sudden, I just had this instantaneous vision or thought about it. Just came to me like, you have to share this. You have to share this. Like you have to speak up. Like you have to share everything that you have learned. You have to share it. And I was at that point, at that time, I was reading a really cool book about from John Pueblo. I don't remember the name, but in this book, he mentioned that the last part of healing was helping others. And so everything clicked in that meditation, and that's when Back to You Now, the book I'm almost done with, and my framework. That's when it started. That day, I started to write in ink like everything that I've learned throughout my life, from the lens of a race car driver, all through all my healing modalities and everything that I learned. So that's how the switch happened. It wasn't something that I was thinking about. It was just like an inner calling from my life experience itself.
That is incredible. I mean, with all your experience, your personal experience, all the growth, all the learning, I think you are perfectly made for this. So you mentioned you built your framework called Back to You Now. It would be great if you could walk us through a little bit of what does that look like? What does it involve?
Yeah, so it's a very simple framework that the main goal is to help people get back to themselves and to stop outsourcing their wellness, right? It's a very simple framework that starts from the first simple step that I took you through, right? How it looked to
Mhm.
me. The first one is to slow down. I call it Lento, and this first step, I help people slow down through meditation, breath work, and just taking a moment to see, to have some acceptance on where they are today. How did they get there? And just to create some space to be able to call their higher self to move forward. So that's the first step of my framework. And the second one, I'm a big geek. Like I love tangible things, and I got this really cool software from my bioenergetic study, which is the study of this invisible field that surrounds us, right? This energy field, because at the end of the day, we're all made of energy, which we now know, right? So getting in touch with this made, like, when I was on top of my car and I was talking to Johnny there, we're like, all right, we slow down now. Okay, so what do we need next? We need energy. We need energy to turn around, right? We wasted so much energy by, when this bucket is so full of stuff now that we need to find the energy to be able to move. And so the second step was restoring energy with very basic stuff like sunlight, grounding, again, breath work, environmental stuff, like just having a look at your surrounding and looking at what's taking your energy away, right? It can be your environment. It can be for everybody's different, right? It can be where you live, it can be your relationships, it can be the food that you're eating, it can be so many things. And then once the energy that is restored, I we will look into gut health. I do feel that, once you get your car running, being able to add the right fuel and being able to process that fuel is fundamental for the rest of your life, right? It's something that I love telling to people is that a healing journey is not something that you do in a week or something that you practice on Mondays. It's like a shift in consciousness, right? It's a shift in consciousness that you're going to take throughout your life. It's not a diet. It's not a ketogenic diet. It's something that, where you realize that you've drifted, right? And then you take these tools, you turn it around, slow down, you refuel, and then you drive back to homeostasis, right? So then gut health is one of the first things that get hit under stress.
Mm.
When we eat under stress, then our body, you know, doesn't have the right signals to produce all these gastric juices, and we lose digestive function. So we could be eating like the most organic and beautiful foods, but if we're not digesting them, then we're just buying organic stuff, and it's just going straight into the toilet. So, and lastly, the fourth step is helping people, teaching people to do this long enough for this to matter. Because I feel like a lot of the times people quit too early. People try something for a week and they're like, where's my result? So I feel like these three components, or these four components, in different ways, right? Because some people might only need to slow down, and that's it for them. Some people might need some deeper gut health help because they maybe took a lot of antibiotics during their life, or maybe they had like a really bad diet or made really bad decisions, and then all of a sudden they have leaky gut. Everybody's going to be different, right? I think that's what Back to You Now is about, finding that proportion of yourself and how you need it, and how to learn how to apply it yourself so you can do it long enough to matter.
And for people who are going through this, who are listening right now or watching, and they're thinking this resonates, I'd like to learn more. Perhaps they'd like to work with you. Like, what resources do you have available for people? What types of support do you offer? What does that look like?
Yeah, so in my website, Back to You Now, I explained this a little bit, but something that I love to do, I love to offer people a free bioenergetic scan, which is something that is very cool. A bioenergetic scan is a voice scan that you can do from anywhere in your home. And what this does is it grabs the frequency of your voice, and it catches disturbances on your quantum field pretty much. And it makes a very impressive report on where the energy is not flowing. And I like to give this as a gift because the information that comes out of that scan is so incredible, is so lined up with what the body's trying to tell us, that is one of my best tools to help people move forward, and also to get people to feel confident that that we're actually looking into the root cause of things, right? Because that's the thing. Like how do I get to the root cause that got my car stuck in the first place? And so once we have a a call about that scan and just see if it's a good match to help some of these people. And then if it's I think it's really important to feel aligned with the person that you're trying to help. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. So I like to give people the opportunity to know me and to get something in return. And that's the first step to guide them. And then after that, there's just so many tools that I use, like GI map test for the gut, and meditation tools and breathwork tools. Like there's just so many tools, and I think it depends a lot on everybody's individual story.
Yeah. I really love and appreciate and respect the individual approach you take to working with people. It's tempting sometimes to come up with a sort of one size fits all
Yeah,
protocol
no.
that you put with everyone that you
No.
work with because it worked with you. We sort of think that what worked with us is going to work for everybody, but we are all individual and unique. So
Yeah.
that is absolutely amazing. Of course, this is all linked in the video description. So people watching, listening, take a look, see what's there.
Yeah.
David, you're an incredible person. I really love your approach. virtually everything you've said, I've just been either internally or externally nodding my head, like, yes, yes. Oh my goodness, yes. Really amazing stuff. So I love that you're out in the world helping people and that people have this kind of support and that you're having such an incredible ripple effect from your own experience and helping so many other people, you know, find their way, back to themselves, which was, yeah, absolutely amazing.
I was gonna say that something that I also learned when I slowed down at first. I was like, all right, I slow down, I seclude myself from the world, I go into my little space and I feel safe. But ultimately I learned that it is about taking this intentional way of slowing down and going back into the world, right?
Yeah.
So I think that that's what I've been learning all these years, that we need to take all these tools and help the world by healing ourselves. That's how we heal the world.
Is that your phone ringing, people calling to sign up to your program?
Yes.
The phone's already ringing,
That
you better
phone's
get in
already on.
there.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. So great to have you here, David. Very happy that you're here, thriving, doing as incredibly well as you are. Thank you for the work that you do, for taking the time to speak with our viewers, and just making yourself available for people who are also going through their own wellness journeys. Wonderful to have you here.
Thank you so much, Raelan.
Thank you, everyone, too, who's watching and listening. And I hope you'll take a moment to check out David's resources in the description. So many great things there. No need to go through this alone. You can, reach out to him, see if this feels like a good fit for you, and then just take it from there. See, people are taking my advice. All right. Thanks again, David. Thanks to the rest of you. And I'm wishing you the best on your wellness journey.